Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we are running through Ancient Fairy Dragon. This is a very interesting card. I wanted to do a discussion video on this because I've actually been in the lab working on a couple of different theory kind of things going on with this card. It's a very interesting card. Even though it has its errata and it's coming off the ban list, I do not think by any means that means that this card is not still hella broken. And I'm kind of excited to mess around with it and see what we can do. So, if you don't know, this card got an errata. Essentially, I think it's a hard once per turn now, and you lose your battle phase the turn you use the effect to special summon from hand, stuff like that. But like all things considered, the card still at its core does almost everything that it did before, and so that's really strong. I think this is more showing a little bit of power creep that Yu-Gi-Oh's come so far that something like Ancient Fairy can come off the list and be messed around with again. So there's a lot of really cool options for this card. We're going to be going through the best field spells that I think give this card an opportunity to see some play in a couple of different decks. And then at the very end, I'll throw out just a couple of interesting options on just ways to facilitate this card a little bit better as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. There's a lot of cool field spells. A lot of these are archetypal because we want these to be extra accessible. So we like engines that get us to a field spell. So yeah, let's go. Starting off, Union Hanger. This may be the #1 field spell on my list just because it has it's able to take advantage of a lot of different things because of the way it works. It's a lot of machine monsters, so it makes pretty good use of Therian Regulus, which makes Therians a pretty good package. Stuff like Adventure is playable in here because you don't have a normal summon that activates its effect, so on and so forth. Very cool. From there, we move on to Therian Disc Coliseum. I mean, this one's not necessarily a starter, and that's really going to be the one downside to this one, is that this is more of an extending piece than anything else. It's not really a starter, whereas you'd like, ideally, the field spell to be a starter that can help you get to Ancient Fairy, but then also, you know, set up a field spell, because to make Ancient Fairy do what it does, you do need to get that field spell set up first. So, still a cool one, but it needs to pair with other stuff, like ABC. Trickstars. Trickstars are very interesting. I like the way this engine works because not only is Light Stage getting you to your engine, get to Candina get you to another extender, or into the trap if you want, for like a potential way to mess with your opponent. But also, I love that Candina also gets you to the field spell, right? Some of these engines you'll see a little later on, spoiler alert, like Meltdown, like Invoked, right? Meltdown gets you to Alistair and is an awesome starter, but Alistair does not get you to Meltdown. So if you see Alistair, but you can make Ancient Fairy, if you don't have a field spell, you're not really doing anything, right? So, with Ancient Fairy. So that's something to keep in mind. But I do like this one quite a bit. The question will be, like, are Trickstars good enough? And maybe if we have enough supporting stuff around them, they could actually be something interesting, but we'll see. From there, we move to the Hidden City. This was a really interesting thing to note. Way back in the day, when there was like a crazy field spell deck, all the way back in like the end of 2017, I think, or maybe early 2018, there was a field spell deck. It played like, I think, a Trickstar engine, and a Meltdown engine, and Hidden City. And you would like make Ancient Fairy search Hidden City for what's his name? The Nemesis Warrior. You could use Ancient Fairy to special him from hand, and then you could send himself with any other monster on the field, essentially, to like straight up cheat out any Subterror Behemoth straight out of the deck. And that's kind of what you would do, is you'd kind of get them set up. It was very cool. Unfortunately, I don't know if that's good enough for modern day standards. This one's a little more contingent, in my opinion, on us getting maybe like a little wave of new Subterror cards that kind of allow the deck to work a little faster, but I do still think there could be something here. It's obviously a good field spell. I'm not going to sleep on it. From there, Primitive Planet Reichphobia. It's good. I mean, there's really not much else to say here. This is one of the better engines, in my opinion. What's really cool, again, kind of a little bit similar to Trickstar, but even better, I would argue, is that because we have a Link 1 that searches out our field spell, it is very easy for us to just go, you know, normal summon a Scareclaw, link it into the Link 1, search the field spell, you know, the field spell searches another monster. That extends us, gets us somewhere else. And then once we climb all the way up into our guy, we're able to get out the level 4 guy. And then boom, as long as we can extend into Ancient Fairy from there, we've already got the field spell. So this engine gets you your field spell very, very cleanly. The question is, how many other engines does this engine work with? Because ABC's has Therions as a really cool secondary engine to search through Ancient Fairy. What field spell are we getting off of this guy? Maybe we don't have it yet, but maybe we will get it soon. Next up in line, Kashtira. Now, Kashtira is a weird one because you don't really want to be searching this out as like the second field spell. You don't want to search this off of Ancient Fairy, but just being able to use this to grab a Kashtira, and then it's just a field spell, so you can go summon Fenrir and then do a play that just gets an Ancient Fairy, pop the field spell. That could still work. It's just another engine that gets you to something, potentially just a generic good card in Fenrir, and then you go from there. Now keep in mind that also, I believe all of these, no, I guess not this one. Oh, I don't know why I thought that. I thought all these field spells added also could just add Visas Starfrost. Okay, so Reichphobia can search you Visas if you need to, which is cool. But yeah, moving on. This is where things get a little more interesting, right? Because there is some synergy between Monodome and some of the other Visas Starfrost archetypes. They all have searching field spells, whether it's these three. I left the tier limit field spell out of here just because tier limits don't seem to work with as many of these other engines as well as you would want them to, but I guess that you could also kind of throw that in there as well. But this one could potentially search something good. We'll see. Maybe there's something where you could play like a deck that plays all three, and as long as you just play like extenders that get you to a Synchro 7, it allows you to connect to the next engine, connect to the next field spell, and keep going from there. I don't know. Could be cool. Magical Meltdown. Yeah, I think what's pretty cool about this one is that you could play another field spell. The question will be like, what's the other engine that you want to be searching out off of, like with a field spell search? That's really what it's going to come down to, but we already have stuff like Invoked Dogmatica Shadal, which is already a respectable you know, version of them, and then maybe this just becomes another avenue for you to extend, for you to find more engines and go from there, which is cool. Next up, Generator Boss Stage. This one's a weird one. This one would be more of a one that you would want to search off of Ancient Fairy. You wouldn't want to set this up, then pop it with Ancient Fairy to search again. This one would be the payoff, because then you just activate it, and then it would summon probably Har on the opponent's turn, which is pretty good. Of course, you have to play the brick, and if you draw the brick, this is dead, so you need to keep that in mind. But, you know, assuming that's possible, this is actually a pretty insane payoff. I think just one card, get it, and then as long as you just didn't draw the Har, the one payoff you play for it, you could be in a really good position. Libromancer. I think Libromancer is another really interesting one because Fire gets you to Geek Boy gets you to Field Spell. Field Spell gets you to Geek Boy gets you another spell. Geek Boy himself gets you to the Field Spell. So the deck has a lot of ways to kind of access the Field Spell. The question again becomes like, where do we go with this? And I know the deck's pretty open-ended, and that's been one of the things that's made it kind of seem to be a harder deck to build just because there's so much you can do with it. Other engines you could play, Mikanko stuff, so on and so forth. There's a ton of different little packages you can mess with. The question will be, where do you go, and can we find the right extenders to pair with it? But I think it's possible, especially for a deck that may already play the Adventure engine. You know, you could play the Dragon Ravine package. You could play even... what are they called? The Punk cards. Punk's another thing that I think for a handful of these decks, just because they do have the extender in Emergency Teleport to potentially not even use the normal summon, but allow you to get a ton of value. The only downside with the Punk engine is they don't have levels that inherently make a 7. They make 8s and 11s, the easiest, I think. And so 7s are not, they don't inherently make 7s themselves. They need like outside extenders to kind of get there, I think, most of the time. So we'll see. But yeah, I left them out because they're not like, they technically can search their field spell, but they're not really like a field spell centric strategy. Except for when they're more pure. But then if you're the more pure you are, the less you want to combine with other engines, it feels like. I don't know. It's a weird kind of dichotomy there. I left it out, but it's definitely something to consider. Spiral Resort. This card is not once per turn, and now it is at 3. So this is a very interesting one. This actually used to be played in that field spell deck I talked about from late 2017, early 2018, because you would just like grab Secret Agent, Super Agent. Which one's the one? The one where you call what the top card on your opponent's deck is, and if you get it right, he summons himself. So it would kind of just be like a level 4 extender. But of course, in Modern Day Yu-Gi-Oh, you could just call it wrong and be in some trouble. And then this card's just kind of that extender is just dead in hand, just very annoying. But still interesting card for sure. Especially not being once per turn. But maybe there's a way where like maybe you play a more pure, not pure, but like a heavier spiral build that like can search you resort, and then from there you go into stuff. Like, I don't know, but it's interesting for sure. Dragon Ravine. This is one of the biggest ones because I think it's possible almost no matter what you go for that this could be in the deck. Just because we're talking about Ancient Fairy Dragon, and one of the best ways to get that going is by accessing a 7, and one of the cards that came off the ban list recently that facilitates 7s maybe better than any tuner in existence ever is Destrudo, the Lost Dragon's Frizzen. This card is crazy. From hand or grave, it can pretty much just plop on field and guarantee you a Synchro 7 play. Yes, it costs you a lot of life points, but man, if your board is unbeatable, what's it matter? You know what I mean? Life points are a resource, so might as well use them. But yeah, this card's really crazy. I think there's also the possibility of playing like Darkworm, the Pendulum, where if it's engraved and you control no monsters, it just summons itself. So that's like, this can get you a level 4 extender without normal summon, or it can get you to Destrudo to get you into that Synchro 7 play. There's definitely some really cool things there. Now, I know generic Synchro 7s aren't the best end board bosses in the world. There's a couple that are like, okay, sure, I guess that's an interruption. But obviously the 8s certainly outclass the 7s, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. The other monster that I wanted to throw out there is this guy right here, Revolution Synchron. I made a whole video talking about this guy. It didn't get a ton of traction just because it's like not a big name card yet, but I think it could come around. This card kind of works like the microcoder and code generator Code Talker support cards where they can link from hand for a Code Talker. This guy can synchro from hand as a level 3 tuner if you're making a level 7 or 8 dragon or a power tool monster. So you can make Ancient Fairy with this in hand as long as you have any level 4 on field. That makes it a very cool extender. We also have stuff like tuning in the game now, so this card can be searched off tuner. You could also play a deck that maybe plays Assault Synchron. That's another really good Synchron monster coming out. That could come up. And then also this card can reborn itself as long as you control a synchro. So you get to like make Ancient Fairy, like pop something to search a field spell, summon something from hand, and then just reborn this guy and make an 8. That can just literally make Crystal Wing Synchro from that point. So it's like a monster. Using this card gets you to Ancient Fairy and like a Crystal Wing. Like, it's actually really strong. So yeah, I think this guy could come around. He is a machine monster, so again, he might just come up a little bit better in an ABC type deck, but I do think anything that's doing any of these engines, I mean, looking through these engines, how many of these use 4s, right? Like this, even this, we said Send Darkworm, that's a 4. 4s. Is Geek Boy a 3, but I think Fire is a 4, so cool, 4. Not as much boss stage. Meltdown gets you a 4. The main monster for Monodome is a 4. Technically, Kashtira has a 4, but I guess you're not usually using him for that. The main Scareclaw monster is a 4, the best one. Hidden City Guru's a 4, and so is the Nemesis Warrior. Candina's a 4. Not for Therion. I would love it if Therion's actually got like a normal summon monster. If they got a level 4 like starter normal summon, that would actually like revolutionize this type of build for sure. And then all the Union Hanger monsters are 4. So there's a lot to build off of here. I'm just throwing it out there. These are a ton of different options. I'm going to be in the lab messing with a bunch of these. I'm going to start with an ABC build. I'm going to have that actually coming out to the channel soon, so keep your eye out for that. You know, let me know any of your thoughts down below. Is there any field spells I missed? Are there any particular generic cards in the game that I think I should know about that are, you know, in the realm of Destrudo, Revolution Synchron, just generic cards that you think could either facilitate Ancient Fairy, or maybe it's another field spell I didn't throw out there, something that you think could matter here and is something to take a look at that could be relevant in one of these builds. I'd love to hear it. But I'm out of here for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, subscribe to the channel for more discussion videos like this one, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.